5 years ago, when I bought my first computer as a student, I remember debating whether I should buy a hard drive with 20 or 40 gigabytes. I figured 20 is going to be more than enough for everything I would ever need. So I happily settled with a 20. Today, 20 gigabytes is what our cell phone uses just to think about an update. But it made me wonder, how many hard drives and how much memory would it take to store all our data? Everything. Every movie, every picture, every document. Our entire digital life. That question is what eventually led me to DNA and storing data in DNA. After all, DNA, this is nature's basic system to store information for the long term. Well, when talking about DNA and storing data in DNA, you might expect to hear either a biologist or a chemist. But between us, I have a confession to make. I'm neither. I'm a theoretical computer scientist, which basically means that I spend most of my days solving math problems for fun. That's what I've loved doing since I was a kid. I have to admit, not the most common hobby in my childhood neighborhood in Kiryat Shmona. But thanks to supportive teachers and mentors, I was encouraged to follow this passion. And my dream was to apply these math skills into a problem that will make an impact in the world, which is what I'm doing today, happily, with storing data in DNA. But first, why do we even need DNA to store our files? I mean, we already have very good solutions, such as hard disks, flash drives, optical disks. And today, we anyway dump everything in the cloud. We always needed to store data. Back in the days, we simply used cave paintings and engravings on stone. Later, paper and punch card. Ramak, the very first hard disk drive built by IBM in 1956, could store 5 megabytes and weighed more than a ton. Today, I can hold in my hand a drive 1 million times denser. We've made a tremendous progress, but even that is not enough. Today, we are in the zettabyte era. 1 zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabyte. If one hard drive can store 1 terabyte, then 1 zettabyte requires 1 billion of them. If you stack them one on top of the other, you can almost reach the moon. If you stream 1 zettabyte of high-definition video, it would take over 100 million years of non-stop watching. And that's how much data humanity creates every 2 days. And trust me, this is a lot of data. We need a solution that efficiently stores vast amount of data in tiny places for thousands of years. So, what's smaller than a chip, more dense than a hard disk, and has already been tasted by nature for billions of years? That's exactly DNA. 1 gram of DNA can hold 200,000 terabytes, and 1 zettabyte can be stored in the size of my finger. And unlike USB drive and other outdated technologies, DNA will never become obsolete. It is readable as long as life exists. Today, we cannot only just read DNA by sequencing. We can also synthesize it and write it, which means artificially generate DNA molecules using DNA 3D printer. Imagine a future where the Library of Congress can fit in your pocket, where national archives are not massive buildings, but tiny collections of DNA molecules, where museums, libraries, even your family photos, are preserved for thousands of years without fear of loss. And imagine the environmental impact, replacing massive, power-hungry data centers with the size of a football stadium with something with the size of a shoebox. Well, it may sound like science fiction, storing your files in DNA, but it is science fact, and it comes with no ethical dilemmas and no need even for any living organism. Richard Feynman, in his famous 1959 talk, was one of the first ones to imagine this idea. It took more than 50 years to have the first proof of concept experiments to show it was possible, and let's see how. DNA consists of 4 bases, A, C, G, and T. That means we can map every 2 bits into one base. By translating any file into these bases, we create short DNA sequences known as oligos that can be synthesized and then stored in a tiny vial of water. Later, by sequencing this strand, we can read the data back. That's all. Sounds simple, right? Well, in practice, challenges emerge. DNA printers can only make short oligos, not the long ones we have in nature with millions of bases. Each oligo has millions of copies, and everything is stored together out of order. And more than that, DNA sequencing and synthesis are slow processes which introduce errors, insertions, deletions, substitutions, and missing strand. Imagine watching a movie where every few seconds the picture freezes and the audio drops out. Without using powerful tools, your story is lost. So, what does a computer scientist have to do with DNA? Quite a lot, actually. You see, DNA is an amazing information system, but it's messy. When storing data in DNA, the molecules get confused. They skip a letter here, duplicate one there, or completely disappear. That's where my work comes in. My research is about giving DNA a language it can trust. By designing coding schemes and algorithms that act like the grammar and spell check of DNA. They make sure that when you store a file in DNA, you get it exactly the same. Every pixel, every frame, every byte. Storing data in DNA is like creating millions of tiny puzzle pieces. Some get damaged, some get lost, but with the right coding tools, we can reconstruct the picture perfectly. We build error-correcting codes that can handle insertions, deletions, substitution, and missing strands. Every strand can be noisy, but together, the data can be reconstructed, like completing the puzzle pieces. We use some of the synthesized bases for redundancy to repair what's damaged or lost. Claude Shannon, who is the father of information theory, showed how redundancy can make communication reliable. In a way, Shannon gave us the math to make DNA storage happen. And we apply these principles over the molecules to correct these errors. And it's not just about correcting errors. We design algorithms that can efficiently read the data back by a factor of 3,000 times faster. DNA synthesis is slow and costly, so we design strands which are machine-friendly to reduce both time and expense. We also enforce biological rules, avoiding long repeats of the same base or imbalances between A, C, G, and T to make the process more reliable. In short, we are building the software of what's called a storage controller for future DNA-based storage system. And we're not just doing that in theory, we are actually doing it. In my lab, we run sequencing experiments and collaborate with other companies and research labs for synthesis. Our goal is to spin out these solutions into products that will integrate into future DNA storage systems. So this is how we will have the Library of Congress in our pocket. And what other data can be stored in DNA? Well, any kind, since there is no difference between the bits of a movie, a picture, or a PDF file. And to show its practicality, we encoded the names of all alumni of the Technion's computer science department in DNA and stored in a capsule that will be open only in 100 years. It's a message to the future, literally sealed in DNA. We started with stone tablets, moved to silicon chips, and now we are back to organic matter. Turns out, nature had the best hard drives all along. DNA storage won't replace flash drives or the cloud tomorrow, but it will transform how we preserve data for the long term. The future of data is not just in silicon chips and flash drives. The future of data storage is in our DNA. Thank you.